Roots of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Roots of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E. My guest today is Wendy Geza, a South African PhD student in food security at the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. Wendy had no intention of getting into the STEM field, but a particular incident brought her here. She has since settled into the agriculture field and believes that in order to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, it warrants the creation of economic opportunities for young people in agriculture. As a result, her research aims to promote better youth engagement and participation in agriculture in Africa. In this episode, she emphasizes the point of creating spaces in agriculture sector that young people are actually interested in. As you know, agriculture does not have that glamorous appeal. Due to this fact, Wendy elaborates that there is a need for the agriculture sector to be packaged in a manner that will meet the goals that young people want and aspire for. In the process, getting more students into the field by exposing them to the other aspects apart from primary agriculture. To find out more about these fields, you have to stay tuned. Lastly, Wendy lets us know about her own future aspirations. Ready? Let's get into it. Hi, Wendy.
Hi, Anne. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to talk with me. I'm really excited to hear everything that you're doing and all about your research.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited as well. So, yeah.
All right. Well, in that case, let's just get into it. So tell us about yourself, Wendy. You know, where you from, where you based, how old you are, and the degree that you're currently pursuing.
All right. So this year, I turned 25. Funny enough, it was the first day of the SA lockdown. So I'm 25 right now, and I'm originally from South Africa. I come from the Eastern Cape. I was born and raised in the Eastern Cape. I grew up in rural areas, and I'm currently pursuing a PhD in the food security discipline from UKZN.
Oh, fantastic. So before we get into everything that you do, I know you, obviously, I know you personally, and I know you've got a hobby. It's a really great hobby that you're really good at. You crochet, you know. So tell me about that. How did that come into play? Was it something that just happened, or were you inspired by something, you know?
Oh, wow. In terms of crocheting, so my grandmothers from both sides, my paternal and maternal side, they used to crochet. So when I was growing up, when I used to go visit my grandmother, she'd be making, you know, like how they had those dollies that they used to put in the lounge and those crochet lace, decorating stuff that they used to put in the dining room. So my grandmother used to do those. So I used to just watch her as a child, but I never really took interest in it. And then when I was I think I was 10, she showed me how to hold a crochet hook, and she showed me a few stitches because sometimes I'd get bored and start touching her stuff. So I used to just learn like that, and then I forgot about it. Then a few years ago, I started doing a few things because I came across some interesting crochet items on Pinterest and also YouTube. So I started learning more modern stitches, trying out stuff and selling it to family and friends. So it just became one of those things that I do just to escape when I'm having too much stress at school or at work. So that's basically what happened.
No, I can imagine. Everybody's got that thing that just takes them away from, because from your research, it can get a lot, but it's great that you have this, and you're really good. You crochet all sorts of all these amazing things from your beanies. So but anyway, we're gonna come back. It's not about your crochet. We are discussing your science. So
Now, can you just get back to give us like an overview of your whole educational background, like where you studied, what actually influenced you to get into the science, like the actual root of your science?
Okay. So like I had mentioned earlier on, I grew up in rural areas. So most of people in my community were farming, but at a low scale. That most people that I grew up around were basically subsistence farmers. But growing up, I never really took it as something that I would do later on or put it in a mind frame of just it becoming a career. So when I went to school, in high school, I was doing business related subjects. So in high school, I did business studies, accounting, and then I took agriculture as an additional subject. And from then, like throughout the lectures and not lectures, oh my gosh, I've been in university for such a long time.
The lessons.
The lessons, yes. Throughout the lessons, I'd always just think about it, but not really. To a point where when it came a time for us to apply to go to university, I applied for law and accounting because that was my stream. And then one of the requirements of the CAO was that you must put in at least 3 career choices or streams that you wanted to do. So because I'd done agriculture, I just put it in as an additional subject. I don't know what happened, but somehow the letters that were coming from the accounting and law department, they got stuck on the side of the post box. You know, when it rains and then the letters get stuck on the side? Yeah, so they got stuck literally like that. And then all the new letters that came in were letters with the acceptance offer from the College of Agriculture. So towards the end of the year, I started panicking. I'm like, okay, these guys are not saying anything. And my mom was like, just take agriculture. We'll see where it goes. And then I took it 3 months into the course. Then I saw the letters when we were cleaning out the postbox that the whole time I had been accepted for something else. Yeah. So at that time, like I was frustrated, I'm not going to lie. And my mother is like, there's a reason why it happened. So I must just carry on and see where it takes me. And for the UKZN the agri course that I did during my undergrad all the way up until master's, the undergrad is done at Sadara College of Agriculture up in Hilton. So there you are able to go and attend lectures in the morning from about 8:30 to 1 o'clock. Thereafter, from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, you're doing practicals in the farm. So whatever you studied in class, you are then exposed to, and you're able to touch and feel things. So we were in an actual farm. So that day just flipped the whole idea I had about what agriculture could be. And throughout my undergrad, I then started being exposed to a lot of people in the agriculture industry, from research to primary agriculture, agro-processing, etc. So that's when I think I started becoming interested in it.
Oh, okay, fantastic. That story, what a, like your mom was right. I think, sometimes these things happen where you don't understand why, but then I think like now that you look back, I think, do you regret, do you think you would have been, do you regret not going into law, or are you like happy where you are?
I am happy, and I am happy. Although I still would like to later on branch into something else, but more in, I would like to branch into something else, but more from an agricultural perspective. So if I had to go into law, it would be from a point of view of like agriculture, land rights, that sort of thing. Yeah, but I think with most of how like I got into science, because after I'd finished Sadara, I couldn't secure funding in order for me to get into the honors program. So my lecturer at the time, she was like, listen, I heard about the graduate development program at the university, and they're looking for students. So just apply, try your luck, because they'll be able to fund you and you'll be exposed to agriculture from a research perspective. So I tried it out. And then I went in for the interview, and then I was awarded a scholarship to further my studies. That's when I moved from undergrad, and the program funds me up to PhD level. So yeah, it's literally been just people around me telling me, do this, try that. And then it just happened. So yeah.
No, that's fantastic. Clearly you had some really positive influences who led you on this path of, getting the right opportunities. And it's fantastic. So you said that you went from a more practical aspect in your undergrad, and then now you're working on a more research perspective in terms of agriculture. So for your PhD, like you say, you're doing food security. Can you just tell us more about your research and why it's important?
Right. So my undergrad was in agriculture extension and rural resource management, all up until master's level. And then now my PhD is in food security. So the idea behind my research is that, as you know, that youth unemployment is currently a global challenge, more so in developing countries in the global south. And right now, approximately 60% of Africa's population is under 35 years old. So most of these young people are coming in, and there must come a time where employment opportunities are being created for them. And majority of these young people are unemployed at the moment. They live in rural areas. And with unemployment comes a lot of socioeconomic challenges such as poor health, food insecurity, poverty, crime, and all these other things happening. And in Africa, as a whole, agriculture is the main source of income and employment for majority of the population. And in order for us to be able to achieve the sustainable development goals, there must be a creation of economic opportunities for young people in agriculture. But now, currently, there are a lot of barriers that are limiting young people from succeeding in agriculture and contributing towards a more sustainable food system. And these barriers include issues such as land, acquiring production resources, finances, and etc. So my study is basically investigating how can we integrate young people across Africa into agriculture and make them active, contributing members of society for us in order for us to ensure that there's enough employment for everyone and people's livelihoods are being improved, and young people are not just roaming around causing problems. Basically, how do we make sure that we are creating spaces for them to contribute to the economy of our continent?
So how are you doing that then?
Currently, from my objectives that I laid out, I'm currently investigating the vulnerability of young people in agriculture in Africa through mapping evidence around policies, opportunities, and challenges for them to pursue a career or be engaged in agriculture. And then I'll also go into a separate section of finding out that now that we know where the opportunities are and what the challenges are, what are young people actually interested in agriculture? Where are they, and where can we actually integrate them, considering the opportunities that we've identified? So how do we move forward from ensuring that whatever spaces that we create in the industry are spaces that they're also interested in?
Yeah, no, of course. And that's something very important, the interest part. And it follows up to my question. You did mention that you said that there's about 60% of Africa's population is under the age of 35 and they're unemployed. However, in terms of agriculture, it does not have that whole glamorous appeal to get the youth into it, and you trying to get them involved. So then how do you do this when you have platforms such as social media, especially, which promotes, for example, being an influencer as more appealing and, dare I say, so much easier than laboring in the sun all day when you can actually just get that food from your local produce market? So then how do you actually do that?
That's a very good question here, because if you think about it, influencers right now are currently running or commanding a lot of what we do on a day-to-day basis. So in terms of agriculture, when I think about, like you said, agriculture is not glamorous or appealing, but when you think about the things that are appealing to you at a personal level, those things somehow have something to do with your aspirations, your goals, your culture, your beliefs, and your interests. So influencers are somewhat selling us what we're interested in as individuals. So now the challenge with agriculture is that it's not currently packaged in a way that suits the target markets and the context of youth. So in order for us to then move forward, we must find a way where we are able to capture what young people are aspiring to become, what goals do they have, and how can we then package agriculture in a way that ticks those boxes for them. Because most young people want to have jobs that will be able to afford them property, expensive cars, etc., etc. So how do we and in agriculture, you can do that, although it takes a longer time. But there's also other aspects of agriculture, aside from primary agriculture, that might appeal to most young people, such as agro-processing, sales, and other careers that are further down the value chain, such as your seed supplies, etc. So I think the other thing is also exposing young people to the other careers that are available in agriculture, aside from being a farmer, because there's so many other things that you can do. You can be a crop scientist, you can become a horticulturist. There's so much that you can do. So yeah, I think it's just about finding a way to package it to suit the target markets.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think, with us both, when people also ask us, and I'm sure you also get the same thing because we're both in the agriculture field, when you say you're doing agriculture, they're like, oh my word, you play with dirt. Like, it's not always like that.
And a lot of black people on Instagram are making it more appealing. They are posting pictures so that people see that not about waking up and being in the sun all day. You can do other amazing things.
Yeah, no, and I, like you said, it's important that you package it and rebrand it in a nice way, and there are some people who are doing that. Okay, so now, like you said, let's say hypothetically we do get now we're going to bring it into the South African context. We do get South African youth, for example, to be interested in agriculture. However, now there's a problem. In South Africa, the majority of farm owners are predominantly white. And there's, of course, a gap between, the black people and the white people farm ownership. Furthermore, I also I read that in a land audit by the South African government in 2018, it stated that a total of 72% of the total farms and agriculture holdings, which are individually owned, only 72% of those are actually owned by males, and only 13% are actually owned by females. So now you, as a young black woman in South Africa who is in this field and you are pushing to get more youth into agriculture, do you aspire to own your own farm given all of these, hurdles that are actually in front of you?
Definitely. I think most people that I did undergrad with aspire to own a farm. And the reason being that I think it goes back to what I mentioned earlier, that the other thing is just exposure. When you start to understand that there are so many other things that you can do in agriculture, you're able to then understand that when it comes to owning a farm, it's not only about owning a farm, but it's also about taking up spaces in other parts of the value chain. So with me, I don't think that owning a farm is something that I want to do now in the next, let's say, 5 to 8 years, but it's definitely something that's in my long-term goal. It would be from, I think for me personally, I'd rather come from the agro-processing part then go into farm ownership, because it's very difficult, like you had mentioned, to acquire land and also production resources, infrastructure, funding, etc. So it's better off if you, from my perspective, it's better off if you've started from other parts of the value chain and then work your way back into owning a farm, because then you have a track record and they are able to trust that you can do certain things. So therefore it becomes easier for you to acquire funding, and it becomes easier for other people to invest in you.
Okay, so now for people who are unfamiliar with the agriculture sector, when you speak of agro-processing and the value chain, what exactly does that involve for somebody who's never had an understanding of the whole entire picture? Can you just break it down?
All right. So basically, the value chain are the activities that are involved from planting to that product being available to somebody in the store. For instance, let's take, for instance, in terms, if you're looking at a tomato, so somebody planting a tomato on the farm, and then the tomato being available to somebody at a restaurant, or it becoming available as tomato sauce. So there's activities that happen in between, from production to processing, packaging, retail, sales, and all the way up until the end. So that's the agricultural value chain. It's those steps and activities that are involved from transforming a product from one state into another.
And for you, which one would you particularly, you say that agro-processing, where does that fit in the bigger scheme of things? It's where you are transforming products from one state into another. So that's then packaging, pickling, drying, that sort of things. It's just transforming a product from one form to the next to make it more appealing to the target market. Okay. So that's like, for example, your tomato, you can either get it as a whole tomato, or you can get it as tomato paste or tomato juice.
Grapes. For instance, with grapes, you can get it as wine, or you can have raisins, that sort of thing. So it's basically just transforming it from one state into another.
And so that in that sector, it's easier for you to get into now. For somebody in a young person in agriculture, it's easier for them to get into the agro-processing aspect. From your perspective.
I wouldn't say it's easier, but I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier, that the most important thing is for somebody who's interested in agriculture to identify what they're most interested in and what they aspire to become, and then align that with what element of the value chain they'd like to be involved in. So for me, for some reason, I'm just interested more in processing and, like more high-tech agriculture and agriculture that involves a lot of technology, that sort of thing. So that's where I always just gravitate towards.
Okay, no, I understand. So now we're talking about your future aspirations, given where you are now and at the age of 25, and obviously you also have your future aspirations. Did young Wendy, that time when she was in the Eastern Cape, think she would actually be here? And even though you are here, what are those other bigger goals? I know you briefly mentioned about owning a farm later, but what are the other bigger goals that you want to do?
Well, you touched on something really important. I don't think that even young Anne thought that she'd be where she is right now. So
no. Actually, 5 months ago, I did not know.
So young Wendy had no idea what a PhD even is, or, growing up, like I said, in the Eastern Cape, I had never been exposed to even anyone who has a master's degree. So I didn't even know what that is. But in terms of my future aspirations, basically what I'd like to do, or what I'm working towards, is just to be involved in work that contributes to creating economic opportunities for people in rural areas, and also expanding their livelihood choices. So that could either be like right now, I'm currently in the academic route of things, but later on in life, I'd like to be involved in the international road development space, and also research and policy formulation related to food security, sustainable development, and also climate change. So I don't want to box my science and give you a title of I'd like to do this, but I'd like to work within that space.
Oh, fantastic. I'm sure you're going to get there. You have so many exciting things, and the world is your oyster. But just bring it back to what I said about how you said rural young Wendy never even imagined you'd even be here. What advice then would you give to, let's say, somebody who's listening to this and just is inspired by you, or is interested into getting into STEM as a whole, but also in your field of agriculture?
I think for me, the one advice that I still take with me that I've got from my current boss. Currently, I'm working with an interdisciplinary team of scientists coming from the agriculture space, health, and also environmental sciences. And my boss used to tell me all the time when we're going in meetings, he's like, when you're thinking about science, don't box your science. Don't put limitations or boundaries on your science. You must be willing to learn, explore, and grow. So coming from an agriculture space and coming from agriculture extension and not crop science or any other of the core sciences, and now sitting in a meeting and a table and having to discuss ideas with people who are coming from health sciences and people coming from environmental sciences, I think the most important thing is for you not to box your science, because whatever you're doing, whether it's in science, technology, engineering, or maths, somehow links into what other people are doing. So don't put limits on your science. Go for it. If you have to be the first one who's going to be doing like working within the WEF nexus, which is the water, energy, and food nexus, or any other nexus of any kind, don't box your science. Allow what you do to change over time and be influenced by the different people who you are around and the different perspectives of science that you are being exposed to as you grow.
That's very important. And just to add on that, Wendy, don't you think for you not boxing yourself and being open to these and listening to these people in these different types of fields, you actually get to learn more and your mind also just expands?
Definitely, yeah. And you also get to understand the significance of what you are doing in the field as an agriculture extension officer or as a field officer. How is that related to somebody who is doing research in health science on how they can assist community members to adopt healthier diets, or how they can assist people to make better food choices, or anything of that sort? You get to understand the importance of your work in other people's fields. So it's definitely it opens up your perspective, and it also opens up your choices. It also opens up a lot of opportunities for you if you don't box in your science. Don't just stick to what you're doing, but allow it to branch into other aspects.
Oh man, I love that. And what a great note to end it on. Do not box your science. You should coin that, put it on a t-shirt.
Oh my God, yes.
Anyway, Wendy, thank you so much for chatting with me. This was lovely hearing about everything that you do and just listening to you talk passionately about your research and all of your interests. It's been lovely.
Thank you so much for having me, Anne. I really appreciate it.
No, anytime. And to everybody else who's listening, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to another episode of the Root of the Science podcast with your girl, and with an E. Until next time, bye.